together last night, practiced at a studio, and it was actually kind of fun. So I didn't know it'd be this fun. So anyway, that's a handout. It is a who's who of the community, like the police chiefs, the fire chiefs, the politicians, the business owners. You know, they're the ones they recruit as the celebrities. And then it's anyone that has a dance studio or any kind of artistic that's performing already, we partner you with that. So it's kind of, it's kind of us dancing on stage for the clubs. Last year they raised 300. Are we live yet? Oh, we are. Hey, welcome, folks. I'm so glad that you're tuned in. Hey, thanks, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn. We're glad you're all here. Last year they raised $324,000. This one event. Now, there were some expenses with that, so they didn't clear that much, but darn close. But it funded, this one event funded over 60% of the two clubs that we have here locally. There's one in Prescott Valley, one here. We're trying to expand to the Verde. We actually need a second club here in town, Prescott. So that if we do well, we can do that. So I was out on Thursday at the Prescott Valley Club, just playing with the kids. It's a hoot. I'd forgotten how much energy kids. Who else? All right. You get the edible flowers. You just want to have fun. You could actually pick them right off the vine and down them right there. Or how about on this side? Anyone new to the area? This is your first season? Well, you can't have that one. This is blueberries. Who wants to grow blueberries over here? Anyone? There we go. There you go. And again, all of you are going to get these. So there's a handout going through. If you put your email down, I'm going to send you a PDF of all four of those. I wrote a book on how to grow fruit trees. In that, it's got the pollination guides, which ones go with what, which ones produce the best up here. I'll give you those because you can be mesmerized. You can be dumbfounded if you do an internet search up here because you're getting all that desert polluted. You're getting polluted with all this desert varieties that don't grow up here. Actually, they'll grow up here, but they won't fruit up here. So the frost takes them out. So we need varieties that will bloom a little later up here so we can get past this frost cycle. So that's that book. So it'll be how to grow fruit trees. There you go. And it's got a whole bunch of content stuff, how to water, how to plant, it's got all that kind of stuff. But my name is Ken Lane. I own the Garden Center. I've been doing this for 31 years. Is that right? 31 years now. That's a long time. Wow. I just feel older all of a sudden. For 31 years, I came into the family business. My father-in-law, Harold Waters, started the Garden Center back in 1962. That's before I was born. He started it. And then Harold ran it for many, many decades, had 4 pretty daughters, and I took a fancy to his youngest, prettiest daughter. And then we had 4 kids, and so we got one of our kids, Mackenzie. Say hi. Yeah, Mackenzie is, she's now training to take over to the next generation. So it's 3-generation business, 61 years in business. So that's kind of our background, what we do. We've learned a few things growing here. we've farmed it throughout the county. We've gardened in multiple properties. We've learned a few things. I just want to bring some of those. Like you take just 3 things home with you. It's like this week in your gardens. That's my goal. Hopefully you'll get more, but at least my goal is always just 3. Right now, we got our first rain, really, or at least my gardens. You folks in Prescott Valley Dewey, you've been nailed a couple times. I've only seen rain once, and it was yesterday, last night basically. And the plants, when you go outside, you can see the plants kind of going, oh, finally. You can just tell they're perkier today. 1 rain. And it's not just the rain, it's the cloud cover, it's the humidity, and it's the moisture. It's a 3-fold thing. So when you're outdoors, standing outside in the sun and you're hot, so are your plants. They're kind of perspiring. They're trying to curve their leaves, curl them up, protect themselves. Don't perspire as much. Try to take up more moisture. They're compensating in a lot of different ways. And that's why a tree cools down your backyard so well. It's not cooling you down. It's trying to cool itself down. So it actually will turn its foliage, try to protect itself, trying to cool its temperature down. So, and you tell the plants when they actually have less sun, more moisture, they kind of go, I feel good. And that's what they're doing this morning. And so hopefully this monsoon will keep going. It typically does through September. We get rain and humidity through September. How much rain we get, we never know. But humidity and sun, the cool, it was almost chilly this morning. It felt kind of crisp. It felt good. So I was out there watering, deadheading my flowers. Right now, if you can pick off the damaged stuff, I was out deadheading my salvias. Do I have one of those? Here. This has been in bloom in my yard for a couple months. Hummingbirds love this plant. But now it's got these long spent flower, keeps flowering on top of these stems. It's starting to fade. So all I did this morning, I took my knife or pruners, just trimmed it back, took all the spent flowers off, fertilized it, and within a couple of weeks with this kind of weather, full bloom, it'll be even more glorious in a couple of weeks than it's been all of spring and early summer. So this is a whole nother growing season. Someone mentioned grapes are looking a little off. Mine are too. Blueberries, currants. A lot of plants are looking heat stressed. Just fertilize them and they will come back and look fantastic. Your new shade trees, if you got a brand new yard out there, you're just starting to get it to flush. You can fertilize right now. You can get that plant. You can double the growth rate by taking advantage of the rain cycle right now. So it's a real opportunity. I think my gardens grow better this time of year on through autumn than they do spring through now, because that heat of late May, early June through July this year, it's really hard on brand new tender foliage that's thin. It's not quite matured yet. As leaves thicken, they age. They become more robust. When they're real young, they get damaged real easy by wind, by hail, by anything, by birds, by bugs. Now they're hardier, they're tougher, thickened, and so you can really push the growth on them. Okay, there you go. So my goal is to show off this stuff. And if I get enough time, I'll show off more of this stuff, because there's some fun, exciting things that just came in that you can plant now. Everyone's asking for hydrangeas in April and May. Well, hydrangeas are ugly in April and May. They're barely stubs in a bucket. But now's when they bloom and they're glorious. So we got to touch on them just because if you're a gardener at all, they're exciting. Let me take a sip of soda. I got to tell you, my humidity, I'm not a humidity guy. I like 10%. It's pretty good. And it must be 50, 60 because I feel gooey this morning. I don't know. Anyone else? How you feeling at home? Thanks for tuning in, you all. We know you're there. But we'd rather have you be a VIP customer. Virtual in person. That would be great. Come see us this afternoon. Okay, so let's touch on fruit trees. Let's touch on berries. So blackberries, raspberries, strawberries, blueberries, some herbs, because you can plant herbs now. I'm harvesting herbs like crazy right now. It's hard to actually pick them fast enough because they're growing so fast. But you don't want to let them bloom flower and stuff. So we'll touch on that. And then how to care for stuff, fertilize, that kind of thing. Okay. So fruit trees, let's start with that. Okay, let's get out of the way. No, you cannot grow citrus up here. Get it out of your mind. Okay, that's a valley thing. Stop asking me that question. You cannot grow it. Okay, you can grow apples, pears, apricots, nectarines, peaches, cherries, glorious things, plums. They all do really well up here. So the Phoenix people, they want to grow all that stuff. Well, the mountain people, they want to grow all the citrusy stuff. It's an elevation thing. We need plants that could take a cold winter, and that is not a citrus. Citrus will go down to about mid-20s, and then they're obliterated. They die. So they'll grow fantastic until like January 1, and then they're dead, unless you bring them indoors, okay? Or you have a greenhouse, okay? That's cheating, okay? But for us regular people that have to use our yard to garden, citrus is probably not ideal. You can grow apples. Now, with that being said, you really need a late blooming. So it's not just any apple, because there's some varieties that bloom very, very early. So the desert varieties, desert, it's got the word desert in it. It's probably an early bloomer for the desert. And so they're going to bloom. They'll grow up here, but they'll never fruit because they bloom too soon. And then they're exposed to that last few frosts that come and the end of March through April. If that fruit or that flower freezes, it's dead. It's just like if you take a plum and you throw it in the freezer, when you pull it back out, what happens? It turns to mush. It does that on the trees, it kills it. So we want to have plants, fruiting trees that bloom real late in the season. They call them chilling hours, and we don't normally talk about chilling hours in summer because the fruit trees they're fruiting right now. The cherries, we're pretty much done with the cherry harvest. So now we're into peach harvest, and then we'll be into pears and apples and that kind of harvest. So there's a rotation of things. But chilling hours are how many cold nights, how many hours of sub-freezing, below freezing temperature does that plant need before it's activated to bloom? So plants have a calendar, they have a counter. And every hour that they're cold, they kind of go, okay, there's one more. They're counting until spring. And the more chilling hours, you need 700, I would say minimum 700 chilling hours. So now it's going to be programmed to bloom in April, closer to May. Apples and pears, they have the largest number of chilling hours. So they produce the most fruit up here. So if you don't know where to start, which one to start with apples and pears. They're typically going to be at 900 to 1200 chilling hours. So they're real late. In fact, they didn't bloom until close to May this year. And so they're the apple and pear harvest. There's lots of apples and pears on the trees this year. So it's kind of exciting to watch. Then you go to peaches and cherries. They're the next one. So if you're going in rotation, which one should I start with? Go with apples, pears. Then it would be peaches and cherries because they're the most consistent at producing. Then it would be plums. And the first fruit trees to bloom going to go over pollination. So apples typically need 2 trees where they don't pollinate each other. That'll be in the book. Okay? They need to be this different varieties. You can't do 2 Honeycrisp. They don't like that. It's got to be a Honeycrisp and a Fuji or a Gala and a Macintosh. They need to be different to pollinate each other. More apples. Same with pears. Now, Bartman will produce by itself, but it really does better. Bartman actually cross-pollinates all of the other pears. But okay, you'll have all that. Okay. Stone fruits are typically self-pollinating, self-fruitful is what they say. So all the peaches are self-fruitful, all the apricots self-fruitful. Cherries, there's a couple that'll do by themselves. They prefer to have a friend. So yeah. Oh, don't pull up. You're not going to keep us waiting while you look at your phone right now. Oh, perfect. Yes. That's a very good question. So for over here and online, you're there. We're not ignoring you. That's why you got a front row seat. He's got an Arkansas black apple. Start with another one. You get should that pollinated. So bees are going to do the most of the work. Bees and moths are the ones. They get it line of sight. If they can see it, they're going to go, oh, that's good. If you would have put a barn in the middle of it, put another tree, so if you put something in between, they're going to go, I've derailed, and they're off over here fluttering around somewhere else. Just line of sight any distance. It could be 100 yards. As long as they can see it, they're going to go for it. So now you just need, do they bloom at the same time? So for you, I would not put it on the back side of the house where your Arkansas black is on the front. I'd put them in the same front yard, anywhere you want. The bees will do the work for you. So we're hearing rumors of bees colonies dropping. Actually, we're seeing the native population of bees going up. It's the colonized ones. It's the ones that go out, you take them out to the almond orchards, the domesticated ones in the boxes. They travel around the country, and they use them to pollinate pecans, and they go to apricots, and they'll go to almonds, and they're using them as commercial bees. Those are actually collapsing. We don't know why. We're studying it. We're starting to get a feel for it. But university folks, very smart people, have tried to figure it out. We don't know if it's chemical or there's a mite. There might be mite colonies getting into the colony and it wipes them out. There's all kinds of speculation on what's going on. We truly don't know at the top level. We truly don't know yet. We're doing studies right now on it. So wild populations, you all are in your backyard, you're golden. There's almost too many bees right now this morning. Had bumblebees, big old bumblebees, all over my sage this morning. It's beautiful. I mean, like a dozen. And bumblebees are they're skittish. You get close to them, they just, oh, there he is, run! Whereas honeybees, they don't even see you. They don't exist. You just kind of part around, here you go, and they're just doing their thing. They don't move. They're kind of more intimidating because they're like right on you. They're not interested in you. They're focused on the flowers, but they're pollinating. They're focused on pollinating. Bumblebees, I don't know what they're thinking. I don't even know how they fly. Okay, so I got a couple things for you. Here I brought I think this is a nectarine. It looks like a nectarine. Oh yeah, it's a nectarine. I brought this to inspire you. Look, nectarines, all organic from your own backyard, and they taste better. That last few days on the tree is a game changer as far as the amount of sugar that's inside each fruit. Typically, commercially, they're going to pick these early so that they can transport them across the country without bruising them. So they'll ripen up in the box, whatever. Quite honestly, pitted fruits, so things with a seed in the middle of them, once you pick them, they really don't ripen anymore. So they're kind of like a tomato. They don't taste as good as they could when they're fresh off the tree. That's why they taste so much better out of your backyard at farmer's market when they were picked that morning. You pick them, they taste better. That's why. Apples and pears, they actually will continue to ripen in the box. So that's less of a reason to grow apples in your backyard, but there's still that last week of fruit on that tree. That's the difference between a so-so fruit and just, I can't believe fruits can be this good. That's why it's better to grow it. And then you know where they're coming from. You know what they've been sprayed for. You're not going to get E. coli because it came across from Mexico. They sprayed it with all kinds of weird stuff. Then you have to nuke the truck because you can't have any red ants or anything in there. So it's actually scary agriculture. You want to grow it in your own backyard, just so you know where it's coming from. But apricots, or this is a nectarine. I'm going to show you one other thing here. Let me just show you this. This is a peach. And the only reason I brought this, I don't know if I can lift this so the folks on camera can see. Let's see. Yeah. Of course, all that rain plus irrigation went off. It's at maximum weight. I brought this because you're seeing a couple suckers at the bottom. Very common this time of year. And you'll see this on your own fruit trees. You can prune those off anytime you want. A lot of folks are worried about pruning while it's got foliage. You're thinking that's only a winter thing. Not true. In fact, I do a lot of pruning in the summer. And so if I've got to see a branch right here got broken and it wants to come right straight down, or this branch right here coming from the base, just cut those off. Just cut them back. Also, I've got peaches. I'm just about done picking peaches. I've got one in a container. It shades my hot tub. I wanted something pretty in a big pot. It's been there for years. It's got a trunk on it like this, but it's a standard size peach tree. If I let it go, it would grow 20 feet by itself. I don't want it 20 feet. I want it 8 feet. I want to be able to step up on top of the pot, on top of the hot tub, and then prune the top of it and keep its form. So as soon as I get done picking those last fruits, I'll take that new growth and I summer prune the new growth off, or the suckers that have grown this summer, so that I can keep it back to that size, because I want it to be proportionate. If you're growing fruit trees along your back fence, if you're going along the patio, there's places where you just don't want it to go ginormous. It's okay to prune that back in the summer. So I don't think we prune enough fruit trees. We let them go too big too fast. The other one to watch, we do live in the wind. So the mountains, we are cooler. Okay, it's going to get to 90 today. It's going to cool down to 60. It's going to be beautiful, but it's windy up here in God's country. So trees, especially fruiting trees, do not let them lean in the wind. So we get this prevailing southwest wind in the spring. It's like unrelenting. It always blows, day and night blows. So you put a new tree in that hasn't been staked, and you'll see, walk your neighborhood. They'll start leaning. You'll see them leaning to the northeast. Just everything that's not staked leans to the northeast. Then a tree will load up with an extra 200 pounds of peaches, pears, and literally get a windstorm. They'll literally fall out of the ground. They just fall over because there's so much weight and they're leaning. Then you get a wind and it just falls over. Make sure that tree grows straight when it's young. Once it's set, it won't lean anymore. And that typically takes about 1 year. It takes an extra ring of wood growth to solidify that trunk so it stays up straight by itself. If it's this one for sure, this is old enough, it's got a big enough trunk. If it's a whip or smaller one, maybe it could take a couple years. Okay, so keep those stakes on. Some of you, the trees are now keeping the stakes up. Don't leave the stakes on too long. Just a couple of years is enough to keep even the biggest tree, a spruce, a pine, any of these trees, a big maple, they're like a big parachute. They just catch the wind. Just 1 year's worth of growth should be enough to get it to stay up by itself. So you can take those stakes right off of there. If you're just not sure, what I tell folks, cut the tie in between the two stakes that next spring, See how it does before you break off those stakes. Because then you can always retie it if you need to. If it starts to get beat by the wind, you can always retie it. But try taking them off the stakes earlier rather than later. It helps you have a stronger tree. So as trees move, they actually have muscle memory stuff. So they'll actually have, not muscles, but they got cellular, we won't go into botany, but anyway, they've got cells that actually keep them stronger. It helps them stay strong, get a stronger tree. Okay, so that's why I brought this one. I brought this because it was such a great example of, is that the one? I forgot why I brought things. Let's see, where were they? I'll show you this because this is a dwarf of this. This and this are the same exact tree. Trees come in 3 sizes: standard, semi-dwarf, and genetic dwarf. These are like hobbits of fruit trees, okay? They like to be a little mountain. They live in the Shire by themselves. But these grow the actual same size fruit. This is a nectarine. Same size fruit. It just stays, the footprint stays small. And so this is perfect for containers. We use them as designer, we use them in like flower beds. This will grow up about this big by this big around. Just have this cute little tree that has ornaments on it. Put flowers around it, it's pretty. And you can eat the fruit. So there's a way to use it. If you're trying to maximize your harvest, you're going to get a lot more fruit off a bigger tree than a smaller tree. But you could have, even an apartment complex, you could grow this. A back patio on that patio home, you could grow this right off there and have fun fruit picked right off the tree. Okay, that's the difference. I think I brought it to, let me show you this way. So genetic dwarf, semi-dwarf. The difference between, let me show you the graft. So a standard size tree, let's say a pear. A pear will naturally grow up to about 30 feet tall. They're big trees. You could use them as shade trees. A pitted fruit, let's say plums, apricots, nectarines, things that have a seed in them, they're typically going to be about 20 feet. That's not a real big tree, not compared to like a 60-foot sycamore, an 80-foot pine tree. They're huge. So they're a click down or two, but they're smaller. They're easy to keep down. Semi-dwarf, if you see the word semi-dwarf, so you got Fuji apple and semi-dwarf Fuji apple. So the semi-dwarf is going to be 25% smaller than a standard size tree. It's still big, but it's just a click down. And they're easier to maintain, easier to pick the fruit, easier to prune, easier, okay, if you need a smaller tree. Genetic dwarf, it says genetically dwarf, they'll look cute, they'll look hobbit-like. They look small. Those should only get chest high or so. They're meant to stay very small. The way we do that is we're grafting the same nectarine is grafted on different rootstock. The roots, we're using the rootstock to control how big that plant gets. So we're taking a certain root and we'll graft that Honeycrisp apple onto that rootstock, which controls how big it gets. So you'll see a desirable fruit tree. You're going to see this graft. I don't know if you can see that on camera or not. Come in and we'll show you. We'll show you. Come on in. Come on in. We'd like to see it. You'll see this graft. So this is the root. We grafted this tree onto here, and now it's growing up. So that's some folks get disturbed going, what is that? It's bleeding out. No, it's the graft, and this grafting paste that we've protected it with. That's how we get the exact, we're looking for the perfect Arkansas black apple. We'll take a perfect form, we'll take a cutting off of that, we'll graft it onto a rootstock, so we get a clone. We get an exact copy of that mother plant. It grows up exactly like she looked. And so you know what you're going to get. If you start them by seed, and we never have things started by seed here, you can find them, but we don't offer them here because we want a high-grade, high-quality fruit tree. We want the best of the Macintosh, the best of the delicious apples. And so we're taking cuttings. Okay, so there was a question over here. Yes?
Speaking of the grass, sometimes the suckers come out from the grass.
Yes, yeah.
And the leaves look different.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
So, good question. So the folks online are over here. So sometimes she gets growth coming from below the graft. So if it comes from above the graft, this is your desired fruit. If it comes from below this is a mangy like beast. It doesn't, it's made for hardiness. This is like just a hardy rootstock, but you don't want the fruit off of it. We're just going for the hardy. This is like a wolfhound. This is more like a schnauzer. It's kind of if you're a dog person. And this is like I don't know. We won't go to cats. Any cat people here? Don't raise your hands. Never mind. So you don't want this. If it comes from here, you do want it. So it won't ever fruit produce. If it does, it'll be small fruits. It'll be nothing but pits. It won't be good.
The leaves look different.
The leaves are totally different. It's a totally different plant. It's an apple, but not an apple.
That's what an apple.
That's exactly what it is. So you really don't want it. And that's why you don't want to start things by seed. Because out of 100 seed that come up, I mean, just like people, there's 5 of them that go, oh my gosh, I just want to take a picture, put it in a magazine, look at it all the time. It's just so pretty. Oh my gosh, the best fruit, the prettiest hair, the greatest. There's 5% of those. If you graft them, that is, you take a cutting off that perfect specimen, you graft it onto a hardy rootstock, now you've got every single one of them going to look like that. There's always 10% of a crop. It's just, you would never even want to give it to your enemies. They're just so ugly. They just don't work well because the genetics are different. Then there's a mass in between. So we want the best of the best. Question over here. We're going too deep into genetics and agriculture. And while we're starting certain seeds, certain varieties, there's even seed qualities. They've got x-rays and systems to grade out seed. So the bigger the seed, the bigger say you're growing giant pumpkins, Atlantic giants, a seed is not a seed is not a seed. You want the best seed to grow the biggest. If you're gonna grow a record, you need the best seed to grow the biggest pumpkins. So kind of all life is sort of like that. So I brought that for the graph, okay? Fruit trees need to be at least 5, 7 years old before they're old enough to fruit. So all of our trees here that we grow, they're all a fruiting age. We don't have whips. So the younger things, because you're going to grow them, you'll find those at the box stores. When you need cheap, go there. Here, our folks, they don't want to wait. So they just I want it to fruit this year. I had a nickel for every time I heard, I'm not that young anymore. I don't have that long. I want it to fruit now. That's what we're trying to fill for you. So all of our trees are at least, I would say these trees are 8 to 10 years old. They're just at least 7 or older. Okay. All right, let's go to blueberries. Let's get rid of the hardest berry first. What are we doing with time? Perfect. It's a blueberry. They do grow here. Yeah.
I'm not jealous. It's fine.
Oh my gosh, it's good. Blueberries do well. Now, this is for you Midwest folks. You're used to blueberries growing wild out there. They grow huge. They're thickets. They're almost a weed. Not quite so weedy here. So here they don't like alkaline water, and they just don't like that bright, intense sunlight. And so those are things that we're giving them. But their native areas are boggy kind of areas. So this is not going to like your water, your soil. How do you get past that? Grow them in containers and use potting soil. So potting soil is, do we have that? Yeah. This is our growers mix. And the main ingredient in this is peat moss. Peat moss is very acidic. So it's going to lower that pH, which you're always dealing with for all of your gardens, but especially things that like things more acidic, hollies, rhododendrons, blueberries. Want to keep it more acidic? Give them more peat moss. That's going to lower that pH, increase drainage. It's going to compensate for your water. And then when you fertilize, you're always going to fertilize with an acidic kind of fertilizer. We'll go over that in a bit, show you how to do that. But I would say for blueberries, you're better off, so if I get that, will stay by itself. Stay. Blueberries, grow them in raised beds, containers, and grow them in. Don't just put them out there in the yard in our yucky soil. They aren't going to do well. They're going to turn yellow. They just won't produce as many berries. They're always going to look anemic. But in a container filled with potting soil, that's the way to do that. Blueberries do better, perform better with two varieties. So there's some, so get Patriot and just get two varieties. You'll get better, more berries. Okay, that's the thing. They're not going to get as big as they do in the Midwest. They're not going to be this big. They're going to be this big. What you'll notice here in the dry areas, dry climate, is when you read that national tag, it grows to 6 feet tall. Our plants, when you look at the national tag, or if you've grown them elsewhere where they're really productive, our plants here, because of the elevation, grow about 20-25% smaller than they would it's in the Northwest or where they grow naturally. So we just grow smaller plants because of that aridness, the alkalinity, the short season. They just grow smaller. There's a question? Yeah.
How much sun do they need?
They can take full sun. I would say at least 6 hours of sun.
How will they do on a shaded porch?
They will be beautiful. How many berries will you get? I'm not sure. They'll need some sunlight to produce that berry, or the berries might be smaller because of sunlight. They need the photosynthesis to really create fruits. And I would say most fruiting plants are that way. They'll need sun to produce. Yeah.
How do they do with the frost?
These are great with frost. These grow in the Midwest. They'll go down to, I think, minus 20 degrees, 30, some crazy cold that we'll never see. They tend to be deciduous. They can't, if it's a mild winter, they'll hold their foliage. If it's a cold winter, they'll be deciduous or lose their leaves. But they come right back and they produce, they bloom early. Plant them right now. That'd be great. Yeah, plant them right now.
You can keep them in the pot all the time.
Yeah, you could.
And you don't have to, like, at no point would you put them in the ground or?
I would no point put them in the ground. Oh, I would put them maybe in a raised bed. I grow a lot of raised. I'm a classic, hillside. I butchered the mountain, put my home in. I've got great views, and then my yard is literally burned in this. So I've got raised beds, kind of tiered gardens from the street all the way down. It's like 2 stories down, maybe 3. I don't know. It's way down there. I just got tiered in those raised beds. That'd be perfect. So I just put potting soil in that area, and I go, here you go, grow. It does fine. Yeah. And then I water it in the ground like that. I would water it like I would a rose, a lilac, something like that, a tree. In a pot, I treat it just like any other container garden. Just treat it the same. Yeah.
Grapes suffer from the same alkaline problem?
What's that?
The grapes.
Oh.
The same alkaline.
No, grapes are totally different. We'll get to that in a second. You're jumping the gun. Just hold on back there. Just hold on. Trying to get rid of the hard to grow and the antique ones first, and then we'll go to what you really came for. So, boy, we're getting into it now.
With blueberries, we use, where we were from in Florida, they suggested using pine to help alkaline.
Yeah.
Have you tried that here? Like, does that work?
Yeah, so she came from Florida, and they said use pine to help create more acidity. We have a lot of pine here. So it is acidic. So pines are acidic. The problem with pines in alkaline soil, pine needles break down super slowly, like over years. So they really don't change the pH per se. They're better at a top dressing to keep the moisture in, keep the soil from sunburning. I really wouldn't introduce pine needles into my soil just because they're unpredictable. They take way too long. So I do like pines. A little bit's good, a whole lot's like a fire hazard, but a little bit's really good. Hey, was there something else?
Yeah, going back to the peach tree, I have a miniature peach that I got here in the spring.
Yeah,
It has 1 peach on it,
good.
but it's been the same size for like a long time.
Gotcha, yeah.
And I looked it up and it said needs more water. I don't know, so I gave it more water. So now I have some yellow leaves because I'm giving it
Too much water.
So-
This gardening thing, and you're a gardener, you're a regular, so wow. Imagine how the novices feel.
So why isn't it getting any bigger? Just because it's only a year old?
Yeah, so she's got a peach, miniature peach, but all peaches, we've been hearing this
I mean, it's
from all
it's
peaches.
like this.
Yeah, and she's had a fruit on there, and it's teasing her. Well, look, I'm eventually going to be it's going to be so good, but it's not maturing. It's not getting big enough. It's not growing. So she looked online and it said it wasn't getting quite enough water. So she upped the water, and now she's overwatered because the soil's not quite perking fast enough, and she's getting some yellow leaves. Not a big concern, but we are hearing consistently the fruits are smaller this year. And the reason I think it is, we're just gardeners talking. This is what I think my gardens are doing. It's something similar in yours. I think the season is so late this year. Remember how cold it was last spring? I mean, really, the season is a month delayed compared to other years. We're just it's coming, but it's just a month later than it's ever been. And I think peaches are going to be, normally we'd be picking peaches by now, but I think it's going to be a month before just because they got a late start.
Because it's had the fertilizer, it's had
Mhm.
flower power.
Yep.
It's sitting there going,
Yep, it's just not growing. And then I think partly you too, what you have an immature tree. So you planted a brand new plant and just the roots haven't matured enough. So
it's in a pot.
yeah. So next year is going to be so exciting. We have so many peaches next year. So I think roots will help you, even in a pot, because it's going to fill out that entire pot, not just here. This is an elderberry. Anyone done anything with elderberries before? Really?
I have questions about it.
Oh! Oh, it's a pretty plant,
Yeah.
but it's an old-fashioned currants, gooseberries, elderberries, kind of an old-fashioned plant. But what's your question?
I mean, berries. It has beautiful flowers, and then nothing.
Oh,
And I had it in my planter, and I thought maybe if I was like struggling to put it in a pot, it was doing great.
oh,
Beautiful
the
flowers.
game changer was the soil.
Probably.
Yeah,
But-
soil made a
But
difference.
still no berries, and it's
Yeah.
been 2 or 3 years.
I don't know what's going on with that. So we can talk offline and kind of try to analyze it, look at it and see. But elderberries, they grow quite well here. Obviously yours is
Yeah.
blooming, looking good. I mean, this is just a pretty plant. It's got a real waxy leaf to it, which is why it's so robust in a dry climate. It's real frugal on how it uses its fruit, uses its water throughout the foliage. But elderberries will grow here, okay? Currants, gooseberries, typically greenberry, will all grow here. Before we leave that and go to figs and the other summer things, kiwis and stuff, if you've got, I brought this for you. This is a nectarine, and the birds have been pecking the living daylights out of it. I thought I'd cover just real quick how to keep birds off your fruit trees, because they're going to like them as much or more than you do. But this was a reminder for me, touch on birds. What I do for myself, okay, so this is what your grandparents used. This is highly effective. This is bird netting. Just 1-inch squares, you put it over the fruit, and they just can't get to it. Except for every once in a while, the real smart ones will get underneath, then they're not smart enough to get out. So they get stuck in there. That's your own aviary eating your fruits for you. But bird netting works highly effective. You take a broom or something, kind of, it gets real tall, it helps scooch it over. I've had good luck with scare tape or bird tape. The secret with bird tape, it comes in a couple different, it just flashes and spooks them. The secret is don't put these on too early. So they get used to it after a while. So you really, when you're eyeballing the cherries, you're going, oh, it's getting close. Oh, this next week's going to be so good. The birds are doing the same thing you're doing. They're going, oh, it's going to be so good. Next week, I'm going to invite all the friends. We're going to have chips and salsa, and we're going to have a party on their cherry tree. That's when you put the scare tapes on. Put it on right before so they don't get used to it. Just put streamers down every 3 or 4 or 5 feet. Just put some streamers down. And if they get a few fruits at the top, there's enough. We can share. You just don't want them pecking every single fruit. They'll definitely stay away from these early on. Also, I've had great success with these with my berry plants, blackberries, raspberries, mainly. Again, you put those big canes on, and it's got all these berries on it. You're going, oh, boy, there's a lot of berries, a lot of blackberries. I've been picking some raspberries. There's a lot of berries. When you start to see them get just a touch of color, tie a string of the scare tape. It'll spook them so they won't come in and peck away at your berries. Highly effective. And then I will keep that scare tape on there so I know which canes to prune off next winter. Because berries form best on the new canes. It was left over from last year. You might get some berries on it, but not many. So I want to prune that right back to the ground. And in January or February when you're pruning, you won't remember. You'd think you would, but or maybe it's just me. I can't remember which one it was that had the fruit on it. But if I left that scare tape on there, I go, oh, that's the one. That's the one I do. Cut it right back. So some folks say use string, all kinds, identify it when it's producing fruit, but scare tapes are very effective. Had a buddy of mine, crazy guy, great gardener. He took Christmas balls, like red balls, and he hung them in his apple tree, Honeycrisp, confusing the birds. They come peck on that thing. They didn't know what was real, what wasn't. It just didn't scare them. They just frustrated them, so they didn't peck on all their fruits. That seemed to work for them. I've never tried that one. I had another friend that had pie pans. It looked funny. Your neighbor's going to talk about you while they're drinking margaritas. They're going to talk about you, but pie pans with a wooden utensil on it, just to clap things, kind of annoying. If they're your neighbor, it's very annoying, but it's highly effective at keeping the birds off. And they were willing to share their fruits, so that worked out. Something else? Yeah.
Do you have to wait until January or whatever to prune things like raspberries and stuff if they're not fruiting anymore? Can you just prune right away? Or?
Yeah, so I held an entire class in January on how to prune fruit trees. And the reason we do that class in January is because that's the time to prune fruit trees.
I'm talking
Right.
about berries. Like
Or berries, all fruits, all fruits. Wait till after the new year through March is kind of your time frame. Right now, you don't want too much foliage to take off because it's forming. Again, berries produce fruit on new canes. It needs the leaves to form the growth of the new canes. You kind of want to, you can give it a haircut if it's getting in the way. Give it a haircut. I would keep most of it intact in the back.
Yeah, I have blackberry bush that started in one place and runners came up where other bushes used to be.
All those suckers, yeah.
So I have literally thousands of
Yeah.
blackberries that are producing now. But it's like the whole thing is just covered with blackberries.
Yeah.
Are you saying that everyone that has blackberries should be pruned back?
You have a bramble, which they naturally, if you let them go, they turn into brambles. And they can be as big as unlimited how big they can be. My yard is not big enough for bramble. I want them to be contained next to the fence, back there. And if I gotta walk by you and you're catching me, I don't want that. And so you get cut back or tied back or something. And then in the winter, I cut it back so they stay back there. If you just let them go, that's highly effective. But eventually it's going to start choking itself out like a manzanita bush. Starts to just choke itself out and it dies out in the middle. Blackberries can do the same thing. So eventually just fertilize them more. But she's saying she just let it go wild and she's got more berries she knows what to do with. That's what I interpret.
I have friends who are just
That's awesome. That's awesome. I also like, let's just go to berries. Okay, you're forcing me to berries. Here we go. Where did I put those? Here. So this is a thornless blackberry. You can pick this and it doesn't look like you've been in a cat fight when you get done. Okay, so it doesn't have thorns. So if you got a tighter yard, you've got it on a fence or a trellis or something, you're gonna train it back there, you can walk by, it's not gonna catch you and like stop you in your tracks like traditional blackberries do. They grab you, they've got definitely thorns. So I like thornless. And they produce just as well. Big berry like this. That's one reason I brought this one. I brought this because it's my favorite raspberry. This is you never tried gold raspberries. They melt in your mouth. They're actually yellow or gold. Traditional red, we got red over there too. I brought this one just because it looks pretty and it has gold. I'm a gardener and I like talking plants. I like sharing the knowledge, sharing the fruits, and gold is just, you'll be delighted. This is very good raspberry and blackberry country.
Is that perennial, will it grow every year?
Perennial, yeah. Everything, all the berries, let me think here. I think they're all perennial. So we don't sell any annuals here, including strawberries. Kiwis are another one. This guy here. People don't realize you can grow kiwis. It's a vine, perennial vine. Just very aggressive growth, and it forms little fruits. Here you go. Little tiny fruits. Kiwis. You can grow your own kiwis here. The secret is most kiwis are, you need a male and female to get them to, you need a boy and a girl, or they don't produce. Here we just planted, most people don't want like 20 feet of kiwis. One's enough. So we put the male and female in the same plant. So now you need one plant to produce by itself. So kiwis do grow here quite well. And it'll take our winters, which is fine. Yeah.
Is there anything soil related that we need to be aware of with kiwis?
Let's go soils and grapes. This will be about the same. So grapes, this is very good grape country. From wine grapes to table grapes. You can grow the Concords, that old-fashioned one, and you got all kinds of new varieties. In fact, we're putting several new varieties because grapes get ginormous. But a lot of yards are getting smaller and smaller. So we're trying to introduce more dwarfed varieties of grapes. So there's a whole series over there called Zestful. They can be grown in containers right next to the fence and not overtake. I mean, if you stand still next to a grape long enough, it's going to start growing on you. So it's just, they really produce long tendrils. And so this is a dwarf variety. What variety is this? Oh, Candace. Candace is not a dwarf variety. This just looks innocent. It gets big. So, but your Thompsons will grow here. Himrod is another green grape. It's a variation of that. It's hardier. So we can help guide you a little bit on which ones grow at this altitude a little bit better. So we are at the upper end of where grapes grow, but there's several varieties that have just proven themselves to grow really, really well. So there's reds, greens, purples, they all do well.
How much water do they need?
Soil and water, let's touch on that. So all these fruiting plants are going to like a rich soil. So if you're just gonna open a hole, chuck it in, backfill it, and expect it to grow and produce bushels of fruit, probably not gonna happen. Might grow and look good, but it's not gonna produce good big fruits. You're gonna need to get your gardener hat on a little bit. It doesn't take much. Our soil is not your friend. It's got caliche, clay, rocks, boulder. Some of your core yards, the contractor saved a few bucks and buried the trash in the front yard. That's what my contractor did. So I dig in there and I see bricks and stuff. That is not good for the roots. When you dig your hole, just dig it the same depth. Roots go sideways, especially on fruiting plants. They go just underneath the surface of the soil. So if you know that, dig a hole that's 3 times the width, kind of saucer shaped. And then when you have your dirt out here, you're gonna need to filter it. Anything bigger than a golf ball is not good because it heats up in summer and it bakes the roots. And it's such a large particle, it can't hold any water molecules. It's too big. You want finer, smaller soil particles. So screen that out of there. Some of you are going to have no soil left. Some of you are going to be, oh, this isn't so bad. What's everyone complaining about? And most of us are going to have some chunks, old roots. All that's bad. Screen that out. What's left over, you're going to add, and this is the secret with kiwis, grapes, and all this other stuff, compost, okay, or mulch. You folks in the Midwest, you define mulch as wood chips, not composted. Now, I'm not talking that. I mean rich, mocha-looking, chocolatey, composted organic material. That's what this is. You want about 25% mulch to your whatever soil you pulled out of there, blend that together. Or about 1 shovel's worth of mulch to 3 shovels of soil, okay? I've cheated this up to about 50-50. If you get a big rock or something, you just need to fill in some more. Above 50-50, it gets too gooey, too soggy. You really need to add some topsoil. You need to add some filler or something. Most of us are going to be able to do it with just 25 to 50% mulch you need. So blend that together, backfill around the root ball, pack it in. The bigger the man, the heavier the man, the better. No air pockets, just really pack it down around those roots. Water it in really well. I also recommend taking there's no soil that has food in it here. It's just the nutritional value. I mean, we have millimeters of topsoil here, and then your contractor took it, scraped it, threw it away. So most of us have dead soil. So you're going to need to you're going to have to fertilize more often than maybe you're used to in other parts of the country because of that. So you need to re-fertilize more often. Make sure you fertilize new plants. Critical. And I would say with fruiting plants, use the fruit and vegetable food. It's all organic. It's a 6-4-4-7. 6-4-4-7, 6 nitrogen, phosphorus, potash, and 7% calcium. Because we know fruit trees need calcium, and we know your soil is lacking it. So we just charged the fruit, we just automatically added 7% calcium to our food. So this is kind of a recipe that we make. I would sprinkle some of that on there, a handful, water it in, and when you're all done with that, transplant shock, plants freak out. When you pull out of this bucket that has known its life, and you throw it in your ground, it's not very nice. It's like open heart surgery and brain surgery at the same time. It's gonna get stressed. The Root and Grow, this is a compost tea. You mix it with water. You water it in when it's all done. And that's what helps it get through the transplant shock. I say use this every 2 weeks, at least for a couple of months, or until you see the plant obviously taking off. It's got new growth, it's happy. Once you see it's happy, it doesn't need this anymore. It's past the transplant. It's now starting to root out and take off. Okay. One little last tip I do, at the bottom of everything I plant, whether it's a tomato, a berry, a fruit tree, whatever it is, I get a bottle of this every year. When I plant, this is AquaBoost crystals. These are, you folks online, you can take a look. Here. Can you see that online? Can you see that? Here we go. Here, look. Hey. Okay, anyway, that's enough playing with people online. You should come in and see us this afternoon. We'd love to talk to you. AquaBoost crystals, these are soil polymers. They hold like 200 times their weight in water. And then we've infused our crystals with mycorrhizal colonies. Mycorrhizals are beneficials that live in the soil. They attach themselves to the roots and they extend the roots of plants. So that you have a hardier plant, there's more roots, faster, and it holds the moisture. It's a game changer in dry climates. It really works. So I'd sprinkle a tablespoon or so at the bottom of the hole, then I start backfilling on everything. I just planted 2 butterfly bush this week. I added some of this every time. So always keep this on the shelf. Yeah.
So I have some of that, and I didn't use it this year. I forgot.
You got it, but you didn't use it. You're not listening.
But I used to just like put it in the bowl and put water in it first. Should I just pour the dry stuff in?
So she bought some, didn't use it. But then how much water should I put in the hole before I plant? Is that kind of what I...
Well, no, in prior years, I put it in a bowl, put water in.
Oh, do you hydrate it before you put it in? No, don't do that. That's too much work. You gardeners, you like to make everything work. No, just get it in there. It's going to absorb the water and do its thing down there.
Okay.
You don't have to hydrate it beforehand. It's too much. Isn't it pretty though when it hydrates? Kind of like this gelatin. It kind of looks fun. Oh, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I tell you what, I just touched. Mackenzie, why don't you add? I just showed you that new planting guide.
Yeah.
Why don't we send that to everyone too? Well, let me convert it to a PDF first. That way,
Okay. Yeah.
you don't have to have Microsoft or whatever else they need. So I'll send that to you. But yeah, you should be at soil level. So this root should still be exposed to the air. That's a big mistake people make. They're thinking plants a little deeper, and they'll put dirt up on the stem, and now we get crown rot. Plants do not like that. There's bacteria that go after plants that are below ground. They start to compost them right there. Then it kills them. So, at level or even above. You folks out that 6-9 corridor, ranch up by Hills, all Stone Ridge, all the way out to Dewey. You've got that hard pan caliche layers. It is really rough soil. I would recommend out there leaving a portion of the root ball out of the ground and mounding, feathering that soil down so that in a heavy rain, at least this much of the roots can breathe. Because literally you can drown in heavy clay soil, you can drown plants. With an irrigation a couple times a week, plus an afternoon rain a couple times, plants can get yellow and start to affect them. So yeah, don't, for the love of gardening, listen to anything that comes out of Phoenix. Okay, they're gonna tell you, plant in a divot, plant it in a hole, you want a rain harvest. Of course, we're not 120 degrees at midnight up here. Who lives down there? It's crazy. It's too hot, it's nuts. Okay.
So that applies to all plants.
All plants, but especially fruiting plants. Fruiting plants are real sensitive to they need good soil that drains, need it rich and fertilized. Yeah, well, pine trees don't need all that. They do better. Cypress, cedar, juniper, they're less finicky, but they're more sensitive to overwatering. So each plant series has a little bit different technique. Whatever you do, don't let, it's the biggest mistake I find. People go, oh, if this is good, this is better. They cover this graft and trees will die. It takes about 2 years for it to die, and then it collapses. Well, I planted it exactly the way you told me, and it died. Here's another one, but don't do that again. Listen, read the pamphlet we gave you. We'll give you a copy of that here shortly. Bless you. Okay. Herbs. Did I get you? It's yours, organic, it's all yours. I'm not sure if it's quite right, but it sure is pretty. It might be right, actually. It might actually be right, yeah. Completely organic. Herbs. We grow herbs up here at this elevation better than anywhere else in the country, literally. Because it's dry and it's bright. They love that. We aren't humid typically, like the South is or Midwest, so we don't get the leaf spot diseases, all the leafy disease things. They just keep growing and growing. The reason I brought some herbs, this is sage, oregano, mint, parsley. You should be picking heavily your herbs right now. Don't let them bloom. Because when they start to bloom, they lose their flavor and they stop producing foliage. The foliage is typically what you're going after with herbs, not so much of flowers. Maybe coriander or cilantro maybe, but most foliage, when you're going after this, the foliage, okay? And these are all perennials. Most herbs are perennial. Lavenders, rosemaries, that kind of stuff. Not basil. Fennel's questionable. Grows really well, but maybe it won't winter over. But most of the herbs are very much perennial.
Is it too late to plant them now?
No, you can plant herbs right now. I just don't have this huge selection. I have the core. But in the peak of spring, April and May, we're famous for herbs. Mainly because I get bored with plants and I really like differences. I like lemongrass. So I have a lot of different things. So I'm not going to have French tarragon right now, but I do in the spring. But I'll have sage. So yeah, you can plant now. This is actually a very good time to plant. It's like, I think it's probably the best time. It's even better than spring. The reason being because we're in this extended growing, the humidity and the warm soil really gets things to grow fast. Faster than the spring. In the spring, things are growing, but the soil is so cold, the plants literally will sit there and look at you for a month or two while they're waiting for the soil to warm up. And then they finally root off and they start taking off. Right now, you put them in, they're rooting almost the next day. They're halfway, they're rooting right away. What I found planting the butterfly bush last week, dug the hole, the ground was exceptionally dry. And so if that's the case, hydrate the soil around that plant. Don't put a dry plant in a dry hole where you won't be happy. Hydrate the soil ahead of time. And I usually will fill that hole up about halfway, just to hydrate the surrounding soil. Many times we'll plant a moist plant, and that dry soil will wick the water away from the root ball right away. So when you're watering a new plant, you're not thinking about the plant, you're thinking about the surrounding soil, so it doesn't wick away the water from the root of that plant. guess we should also cover, what's a good example? Let's go this, let's take this blackberry. And see if I can find one that's maybe this. Let's see if this will do it. Let me find one that's overgrown. Let me find one that you'd find at Home Depot or something. We call it Home Dumpo here. Getting close. Sometimes you'll see roots growing like this, or they kind of be matted at the bottom. A question often comes up is how much? What should I do to the root ball before I put it in the ground? Not very much. Be gentle. This is my baby. Don't beat it up before you put it in the ground. Some people go beat it up until there's no soil left. Don't do that. What I'll do with this is, you'll see the bottom is maybe matting just a touch. The side is perfect. I might just rub it just a little bit to get these surrounding roots to start coming out this way. But that's all I would do. And then I would plant it, and now the roots are going to go sideways. Sometimes you get a real aggressive plant, like a red tip Botania, cottonwoods. They'll start to grow in a circle. So there I'll say take a razor blade or pruners and just score. Don't beat up the soil, don't just score it. Or root prune those roots. When you cut it, it'll start to send out more hairs where that cut was, send out more root hairs. But be gentle. If something's really wrapped around, don't buy it. Because once a plant starts thinking like that, it never stops. Once it starts growing in a circle, it just can't help itself. It has to grow in a circle. I don't care if you're root prune or whatever. Those are typically leftover plants from last year. Some big box store bought it at a discount, and now they're offering it. You just don't really want that in your yard, because in about 5 years, it's going to grow like this, outgrow its space, and then it's going to collapse or die. Or you'll have all kinds of, you'll be coming in every other week going, what do I do? And there's nothing we can really do. So don't buy plants that are root bound. So going around in circles. Okay. So that cover it. Let's go over tomatoes, because I picked my first big crop of tomatoes. Actually, my second this morning. We made pico de gallo last weekend with the family. Oh man, things are so much better. You have your own produce. It's like a sweet pico instead of this store-bought tomato junk. But I did have a couple spots on my tomatoes, some black starting to show up. Boy, that's some good dirt. Oh, that's good. I feel more comfortable when I have that kind of dirt. I don't know, it's something about that. I'm spraying with Blossom Set 1 week. I'm spraying with Yield Booster the next. I'm doing this. That's what's getting my produce, my mainly peppers, tomatoes coming off so fast. This is going to set fruit faster. And don't spray the flowers, spray the foliage. That's how you use Blossom Set. I wish I'd take out well, this doesn't say Blossom. Tomato and pepper set. Good, we're listening. But this is spray the foliage, and it forces the plant to slow down and set more flowers. Liquid calcium. If you have a black spot on that fruit or the pepper, the last end starts to rot. If you have any kind of rotting, shriveling on your plant, that is going to be a lack of calcium. So the Yield Booster is liquid calcium. You spray the foliage, it takes it in, and it eliminates at least the next crop of fruit. So you'll find it happening right now. This next set of flowers will set fruits, and they'll be lacking calcium. This is your solution. So it's kind of a critical thing right now. My name's Ken. We're just friends talking over the back fence. This is kind of helping me. I think it's going to help you with your gardens as well. And then food. Take advantage of the rain. Cut back all the spent flowers. And then fertilize. What I'm doing, edible flowers or edible plants. I can't say edible. I got to get out of that habit. For decades, I've been using the word edible. Now everyone snickers whenever I use it. So I got to say fruiting plants. You're going to be using fruit and vegetable food. 6447. So this is calcium again. This is all organic. For you purists that are organic, this is your solution. So it's lots of meals, blood meal, bone meal, lots of meals.
How often do you fertilize?
I would fertilize right now. I fertilize 4 times a year, personally, 4 times. Easter, spring, July, when the monsoons start in the summer, I find October is the most important feeding, especially for fruiting plants. October. That's the food it's going to use to form that winter, next spring's flowers on the trees. And then for evergreens especially, oh my gosh, New Year's. But this is what you're going to use right now for your edible plants. Okay, vegetables, squash, whatever. Everything else, like evergreens, I've used this, all-purpose food. This is the original, so I came up with this 20 years ago. 744, it's not organic, it's all natural. But as soon as you put a mineral in it, you can't call it organic technically. So this has got iron and sulfur and some other stuff, which is good, you need. Things are a little yellow right now. This is a great one, and it's more acidic than the other ones. So it's got cottonseed meal as the main ingredient. Cottonseed meal is very acidic, so it lowers the pH. Things up. And you should fertilize everything in the yard right now, especially fruiting plants. With that, we're coming to an end. If you want, I could take maybe 5 minutes to show you some of the colored stuff, or I can let you go. What do you want to do?
Talk about the figs.
Oh, figs, yeah. Yes, you can grow figs. Oh, yes, you can grow figs. There you go, full sun. I brought this mainly because figs, Phoenix is such a heavy fig growing part of the country, but they grow into trees there. Literally, they could be trees. They don't grow into trees here. What happens is the winter will reset them back to the ground. If you have a harsh winter, they get burned back to the ground. They come back like a perennial from the roots. And so you'll see beautiful bushes, but you won't see trees up here. That's just a different way. It's because of the winter. That's what happens. So they do produce consistently every year. There are some desert varieties. We're bringing in the hardier fig varieties. So kind of shop at Waters Garden Center. You'll have better fig crop. But figs do real full sun, blistering hot. Take a blow dryer to it. It's going to be happy with that. Sun, figs, pomegranates love sun. More sun, the better.
Spend a moment on strawberries.
Oh, strawberries. I'll give you the handout on that. You'll have how to grow strawberries. The strawberries, I don't think we use strawberries enough. I use them just as ground covers. I've got a pond. When it overflows, I've got a whole rain harvest off the rooftop, fills the pond. When it overflows, has a lower retention pond. I just filled that area with strawberries, and it's beautiful. I don't water it, care for it hardly, and it just grows by itself because they're just so robust. And they do what your blackberries do. They just run, and they run, and they run. You always get more. Hydrangeas. So, of course, in front of magazines, everyone's looking at blue hydrangeas. Blue hydrangeas, that's the #1 seller in the Midwest. If you're from Chicago, you like blue hydrangeas. If you want to grow hydrangeas in Arizona, look at the pinks and the yellows, the whites, because they're easier to grow. The reason being, blue is super acidic. And it seems like every time you water a blue hydrangea, it starts to turn pink. They're very difficult to keep blue. So if they're going to be difficult to keep blue, they want to turn to pink, I grow this one. It's just pink. I don't try to go, I just grow this. And I have this one growing in a pot in my backyard for years, and it's blooming like this right now. So you can grow hydrangeas in the shade. No sun allowed. Or at least no midday sun. So that's a different thing here. Our sun at this elevation is too intense. But you can grow it in the shade. So I've got a big 2-story house, the north side, where we entertain, the back patio. It's shade. It's beautiful. It's comfortable. And so we grow things like this. Again, this is a summer blooming hydrangea. It's just nothing's like this. Look at that. That's gorgeous. Secret on hydrangeas, gardenias. If you get a hardy variety, so gardenias, this family of plants, there's probably 50 varieties, probably more than that. We're selling the hardiest. There's 2 or 3 that are hardy enough to grow up here, and they will put a very fragrant, white, beautiful flower, evergreen. It just grows here in the, I would say, keep it on that midday, 10 to 2 sun, and it'll grow really well. Okay. And with that, I think I'll leave you. A couple things here. Keep going.